Hello.
I'm running behind and I'm a terrible singer. I got to mute. I hopefully will be back in less than a minute.
That's
Sorry for
fine.
the delay.
No worries.
How are you?
Doing good. How are you?
Good. Jealous of your voice as usual.
I always appreciate it.
Yeah, it's that interesting, you know, um, fade out. It's almost as if you have a baseline sound, right? As if, being a cat owner, as if you're always purring, right? And when you speak, and you fade out, it just fades down to the baseline purr,
Per
you know. So when you say time, right, like that,
time.
cut it out, damn it. Yep, it's part of the magic of doing what I do is that I get to meet people who have special qualities and they make me want to practice voiceover to keep up.
Watching shows makes me want to practice
We're
it.
starting a new program, which is basically getting people to sign an agreement about how they will, over time, deal with. There's the old joke about project management. Every project is in one of two states. An hour of doing will save 10 hours of planning, or an hour of planning will save 10 hours of doing. And the joke is you never know which state it's in. So you never know whether you should be planning or doing. But when you stop doing, you get anxiety and confusion, right? Clarity goes away, the sense that you're supposed to do things before you take action, right? Like I've got to prepare, I've got to get ready.
Hmm.
And we find that everybody experiences this conundrum that the less you're able to do, the more you think you have to prepare, that you've fallen behind, that you need to do work rather than just like show up and see what happens. People are usually at their best when they first get started because they just show up and see what happens, right? And they don't have any rules about it. We get people who, the longer the breaks they take a short break, they take a medium break, they take a long break, they take a 5 year break, and they think, well, that'll never happen to me. So,
Yeah.
yeah, people just don't understand that when there's empty time, your mind plays tricks on you and you think that you have to figure things out better, you know, when in reality, it's like if you want to stop throwing the frisbee to the left, you need to start throwing the frisbee more, you know,
Hmm.
not sit down and think about it harder. But anyway, everybody who's been at any kind of project for a while knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I self-taught myself rollerblading when I was like 11. And that's more or less my advice when people ask, like, because they're like, I've tried rollerblading a ton of times, and every time I always just fall over. It's like, how'd you learn it? And I'm like, yeah, I fell over 100 times. It's kind of the only thing you can do.
Yeah, the thing about planning and thinking and the associated, like, let's say anxiety or motivation, right? Usually it's more like anxiety the more you think about something. But compared to doing, first of all, you get information by doing that is not mental information, right? It's just sort of, pain, you know, it's pain and motivation. I used to, still do writing a book, but I used to teach chess. And um, when you learn how to play chess, you get, what commonly is nowadays called a dopamine hit, right? When you have a creative checkmate or a real interesting tactic happens, right? Your brain gets excited, right? It sees the pattern, thinks it's cool. And so you teach people to play a pattern over and over again so that partly they memorize it, but also partly each time they do it, the brain goes, hey, I like this.
Hmm.
And it's that sort of pain pleasure oversimplified words that cause your brain to change, right? Literally, brain structures adapt to things you like and things you don't like. It's not memory, it's not analysis, you know. And without that, um, it's really almost impossible. You can't think your way, to brain structures that were created out of pain and pleasure. um, and yeah, but I get people. I had a guy that I hired to help me build something for students. We were trying to improve on, how to get pillows to float behind the microphone, and we were using PVC. And I said, we're going to have a little planning meeting because it's not entirely clear that we should really be doing this thing with PVC. We might just kind of mess around with the PVC and realize that we have a little improvement over the current PVC structure. But I think we need to figure out whether we should really be doing this or not. And so he joins the meeting, but it just took like 90 seconds. And, he was just like pissed off because he wanted to just sit in a room with a bunch of PVC saws, glues, tape, and just start playing around and doing stuff. That was his personality type, and he felt that thinking beforehand was a waste. And of course, what we ended up doing is using rolling metal shelf racks instead of PVC. And, no amount of him playing with PVC in a room would have helped us come to that conclusion.
It's probably true.
But people don't understand that planning is really more about checking your framing, right? Are we really even thinking about doing the right thing? Should we even bother? So,
Hmm.
didn't see any new files from you, just making sure that I'm up to date. Should there be new files or should there not? Sounds
I
like you thought there were new files and now you're double checking your thinking or something.
Nothing new as of today, but
Last thing I have is from exactly 2 weeks ago.
yes.
Okay.
That would have been the one. I had a meeting for the day I uploaded that, but I ended up having to go to something else. So,
Okay, no worries. I opened it and it looked like some things might have been done to it. Um, all right. So you wanted to, but should we just do something live or should we
we
review
can do
that
something
from?
live.
All right, you first. um, uh, so we've got this three-part exercise. Say the words, you know, individually, say them together, and then,
Okay.
disengage, right? Say them as if you're finishing or like just starting, right? But the trick is when you're done, you try to under engage, you try to say them with less effort, less focus, less. Here I am saying the words, right? Part one,
Hmm.
part two, part three. And we suggest that people do a warm up, be it, letting your voice be out in a big way and then bringing it back in or doing breathing or whatever. So, which one of those would you want to work on? Part one, part two, part three, or the warm up? The warm up is also what we call the reset, right? Because it's something you do in the middle of performing as well as before you start.
Mm,
It's not the only way to say, hey, what should we do? But that's one way. If you had something else in mind specifically or a detail you wanted to focus on, that's fine.
I mean, the part one, part two, part three sounds kind of fun.
Okay. Um, so uh, we're some of what uh, I was hoping to have you help me with because of for two reasons. One, you got a great voice, right? And so when you
Thank
let
you.
the words out, um, it's fantastic and it makes everybody jealous. And that's my goal, to piss everybody off that you exist and want you to be dead. No. Um, you're welcome. Uh, but secondly, I knew that if you had the opportunity just to do more stuff in a production sense, you would find it easier to settle into the, just do it versus the, trying to improve it, manipulate the factors, kind of a thing. Because there's a lot of benefit in having a guy that I knew that played professional football briefly was also a football coach. And he said that I learned this. I used to study betting, right? Horse racing, blackjack, some other things, psychology and systems, like in the 1970s, long time ago. President Lincoln assigned me the task. No. Um, and one of the things I learned about team sports is that one of the most powerful factors to measure to make money is the underdog factor. If a team was considered to be very likely to lose, they would play at their best, generally speaking. They had sort of a nothing to lose kind of a thing. But the team that they were facing would have an overconfidence factor, right? And
Yeah.
they just sort of wouldn't organize their effort. They wouldn't be motivated by something going against them, right? If they lost the first touchdown or something, that wouldn't motivate them. They'd be like, well, we're going to win anyway. And so if teams had, reasonable statistical, strengths, if you could find a matchup where one was the overdog by enough, you could bet on the underdog. And of course, you'd get odds, right? Because people go, underdog's not going to win. And it was a really good way to make money because you get good odds. And, it was almost a sure thing, except you'd have to lose sometimes, right? But averages would play in your favor. So the football coach said that he took advantage of that in coaching teams. What he did was if teams, if his team did well, um, he would kind of, and they felt good about themselves, he would kind of cut them down to size, right? He wouldn't try to be mean to them, but he would make sure that they started to think about things that they needed to work on, right? Rather than, oh, hey, we're really good. And if they did poorly, he would try to make sure that they didn't get into a, we're no good kind of mindset. What he said was, if you can keep people in the same state, right, prevent them from having the highs and the lows, their overall average goes way up. So you can take a C plus team and turn it into a B plus team by cutting out the highs and lows. The overall average goes up. Does that make sense?
Yes. I think.
Yeah, it's a psychological thing, right? basically highs and lows are both illusions. And you're spending all your time misunderstanding what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Two different misunderstandings, but you're spending all your time misunderstanding what's happening. Of course, you're not going to do well. And the more of your time you can spend understanding what's actually happening, the better you do. And that was kind of the factor, and it plays out, both in coaching and in predicting results, right? And measuring. So one of the things for speech um, that we're doing is we're going to put together some workshops where people can practice speech, and we're going to keep it, kind of simple and boring, so that we can get people to have more opportunity to actually do stuff,
Okay.
but cut out a lot of the trying to do stuff portion of it, right? Because when you're trying, well, it's got to be more like this, got to be more like that. So and we're talking about speech as flowing in waves, and the smallest wave, is the sound group, right? And the characteristic of a wave is it kind of rises and then it kind of lingers, kind of settles. And then the next wave kind of cuts it off. If you watch a wave on a, sandy beach, right? As the wave hits, the water comes in, and the water starts to go back. And then it's, overridden by the next wave. You know what I mean? That kind of the next wave overrides the previous one every time.
Yeah.
It's cool to watch. It's very, very peaceful, good for your brain. Um, and so speech is about, being able to let the wave, you know, kind of relax and settle down, and then start it on the next one while the one is still fading. And the smallest wave is the speech chunk. Um, and we can combine speech chunks, together, two, three, four, right, into a half a sentence. Or if we want to show a little bit of an arc or a little bit of a, here comes some important information, and here's the important information. The CEO of Voice 123 did an interview about the kind of voiceover skill that the people who make the most money demonstrate. And it was two things. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you, but they, on Voice 123, they suggest and strongly encourage that your demo only be single clips of raw audio. Do you follow what I mean? So like one recording of you talking with no music or anything? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that the clip be 20 to 30 seconds long.
For your
And
first demo?
for a single clip. So you don't
Oh,
actually have a clip. What they suggest you do is you post clips that demonstrate different things. And then over time, as you've posted more clips, you combine them into what they call playlists. Now, obviously, this is just sort of a different language. What they're sort of saying is the playlist is a demo,
I get you.
right? And each clip, I think they call it a sample, or a similar word. It'll come to me. Sample is close enough. So you've got a bunch of samples and you can collect them into playlists. They acknowledge that buyers will almost never listen to more than a few seconds of each clip. And so, part of it is like, and this is true everywhere. Um, and so you would ask why have 30 seconds? If somebody's going to listen, because a traditional demo, we're talking 5 to 9 seconds per clip, maximum of like 12. And there's good reasons for that. But on Voice 123, they have always been very, very focused on helping the best talent succeed and giving a clear route for second best talent to succeed while giving a fair shake to everybody else, but recognizing that if you're not the best or the second best, you really should work on becoming best or second best. Right?
Right.
rather than like, well, I got a friend, he doesn't seem like he's doing anything special, and but he picks up an extra $7,000 a year, and so Voice 123 is one of the only platforms where they have been consistently fair in how their system works, or consistently unfair. But every other marketplace over time, as they get bigger, they get less and less fair. And it's partly because they let too many people in. They deal with fake accounts very poorly. The buyers don't like to get 5,000 auditions, right? So they start to make a system that penalizes the talent, so you have to like pay a fee for your blah 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 blah. Anyway, so Voice 123 has always been very focused on that. And in a 20 or 30-second clip, you're going to have to show some arc, right? There's got to be a journey that you take the listener on. You have to demonstrate the acting ability to tell a story that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And part of it is that's how they internally determine, what your skill level is. And by the way, they're audition marketplace. So, which you probably knew, most of the marketplaces people are aware of for voiceover are audition marketplaces, and all of them except for Casting Call Club require you to pay a fee, right? So they're called pay to play. I'm jumping into the business side here. Anyway, so when we pull sound groups together, when we do 2 or 3 or 4, inevitably we're looking at some kind of an arc, right? We want to feel like here's a bunch of information that comes to a conclusion, right? And you heard me do that. So let's focus on an individual sound group, but let's also recognize that when they pull together, a lot of times you want to indicate kind of where things are going. The most common arc, by the way, is simply to indicate either there's more information to come or like we're done with this section. And so doing the last sentence in a paragraph in a way that feels more final would be one example. Very simple. Just make it clear that at the end of the sentence, kind of like, I'm done. And you usually do that just by settling down to kind of the lowest pitch of the paragraph. Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm talking a little bit about how sound groups combine and why we care and where it exists in the marketplace. Okay. So the smallest wave is the sound group. So some of what you did previously was the part 3 thing where you try to find ways to sound a little more disengaged after having repeated the sound group a few times.
Right.
Did you want to try some things from that, or did you find something that you felt was workable or that you liked? A way to think of it as if, so to speak, less is going on. You have to kind of go back in your memory to remember what was going on there. So let's set that aside. So let's just take my old favorite, On a Summer Breeze.
Mm-hmm.
There's an issue with us doing coaching because whenever I ask you to do something and it's kind of here live, you always do great. It's very easy for you. And one of the tricks we used in the past was, and this is a common-ish trick in coaching, is to imagine when you're working by yourself as if the coach is there and literally like say their name.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask it this way. I know that when you perform on your own, you are influenced by the implied style of the writing, be it documentary or sales or educational, kind of everybody is. And you have a little bit of issue ignoring that. Like one of the tricks was, read the sample from the mentor script, right? The mentor script, just was a very logical and conversation for you, right? And you did a great job. And so one of our techniques was use a clip from the mentor script. before you do something else. Either of those feel like more helpful, using a sample before you do something else, or practicing, I'm working directly with the coach.
I think sampling definitely worked pretty well for me.
I agree. And you can see when we put it that way, have your favorite sample, why that's such a common technique.
Hmm.
So let's pull up the mentor. I've got that pulling up here, and I can put it on screen too.
Do I have that in this notebook? State Farm. Oh yeah, I do have it. Be a mentor.
Um, something happened in the scripts document where the link to the section went away. So I'm going to
Have to be perfect.
fix it. Okay.
Oh. What are you doing down there?
So you have it printed on paper?
I have it written down, yeah.
Yeah. Or you have it written in handwriting?
Yes.
All right. Is there a section or portion that's more interesting? Or just like, you just, a lot of times people are like, oh, I was drawn to the beginning. I have no problem with the beginning. Or it's like, no, I like this part. You don't have to overthink it. In other words, if whatever catches your eye is fine.
I really do like the beginning, yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of parts of the Be a Mentor script that are nice, but just that opening line is great.
Yeah. It's very, it's like self-development supportive kinds of writing. So if you were, reading a book about how to, take better care of yourself, kind of a thing, this style of writing would exist. So it feels like you're being, supportive and kind to yourself just by the style of writing,
Yeah.
as well as, modeling that for others, which is really more the point. All right. So let's do the first sentence all the way through. So all 11 words, all together. Anytime.
You don't have to be perfect to be a great mentor.
Yeah. Go again.
You don't have to be perfect to be a great mentor. You
Yeah.
don't have to be
Interesting
perfect to be a
difference.
great mentor.
And now you're repeating the second kind of version.
Mm-hmm.
In the first version, it was a little more, first read was a little more interpretive. It was a little more specific about the supportiveness of the message. In your second read, it sounded like you were paying attention to trying to speak neutrally, right? To not do any kind of overdoing and let the words, do their own thing. And then in the
Yep.
third read, it sounded like you were simply doing another version of the second version, right? You had settled into let's let the words do the work, right? I'm going to do another version of letting the words do the work. And I liked it. I'm being very non-specific, obviously. How did you like it?
Could have better.
Is that like a sort of a baseline anxiety, kind of like, I don't have a reason to think it was very good, therefore probably could be improved, or is there something specific, or did you seem like you had an expectation that was vague and you were unable to meet it, and so therefore something didn't go right, or
Uh,
hard to
More
say?
like, yeah. It's kind of like a. I don't think I'm relaxing the way I want to.
Okay, okay, great. So you have some awareness of some quality.
You
Um,
don't.
all right. Um, so let's do a documentary style. I'll do it as an example, and then you just do it copying me. But of course, you don't want to copy me. I'm just going to demonstrate so you get to hear how the format of the exercise goes, right?
Okay.
And in hearing it that way, you don't have to think about what does he mean exactly? What are we doing? So it's not copying me. I'm just showing you the format of the exercise, which you probably already are guessing it correctly based on what I said. So when I say mentor and I'm done, then I'll just say your turn. So wait for me to say your turn, and we're gonna, say the speech chunks, and let them settle before the next one starts. So
Okay.
this is going to be anything special. It's just a demonstration of the exercise format, but then I'll say your turn and you do it. I need a little bit of breathing before I start here. You don't have to be perfect to be a great mentor. Your turn.
You don't have to be perfect to be a great mentor.
Yeah. And I heard you turning on your awareness and kind of listening to yourself there, right? And kind of noticing things. It's surprising what a mind reader you can be
Yeah.
when you've done this enough. And you've worked with somebody more than once. And that's one of the reasons we like to have you work with a single coach on a single thing. Like I can teach you, session and direction stuff. Sarah's very good at that, but it's better that she, works with you on a specific thing, gets to know you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's just do it again. And this time, we're going to repeat each speech chunk 2 or 3 times so that if you notice something, you can do something about it. That doesn't mean fix it. That means do it again and kind of notice, is that really happening? Is that not happening? Or do it again and kind of lean it in the direction or undo the thing you think was, just a sort
Mm-hmm.
of a gentle, not so much, let's be experimental, right? So, again, I'm going to do it, which is boring to listen to me do it, but I want to make sure that your left brain doesn't get all up in arms of what's the exercise exactly. So you can just sort of copy what I do.
Okay.
So I'm just going to do each speech chunk 3 times. 2 to 4 times is fine. If you want to move on after two, that's fine. If you feel like you want another, that's fine too. You don't. You don't. You don't have to be perfect. Have to be perfect. Have to be perfect. To be, to be, to be a great mentor. A great mentor. A great mentor. Your turn.
You don't. You don't. You don't have to be perfect. Have to be perfect. Have to be perfect. To be. To be. To be. A great mentor. A great mentor. A great mentor.
Just to say, if it was literally possible for me to kill you and steal your talent, I would consider it. If it could actually be possible, I might wake up in the middle of the night and wonder if I should try it. So thank God it doesn't work that way. I don't know
Yeah.
what to say. You couldn't. Lately, I've been saying I've been easing the rating scale a little bit, um, so that more people get like, higher grades because it makes more sense to people, right? It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, if I'm getting an A quality, it must be good. And so I've been saying that A and A plus and A double plus, which is as high as we go, those are perfect, right? If you're an A plus, A double plus, even though we have some sense of differentiation between those are the perfect level, right? I could barely detect even a moment of A minus.
Oh.
I could not. How one of the ways I know how good that is that I just want to hang up, say fuck you, and start practicing so I can be that good. That's one of the ways I can tell. Fuck you for being so good. Damn it. Ah, I gotta go. I gotta practice. Yeah, it's
That
that's
might be the best review I've gotten on anything ever.
I do literally, you know, I would not say that I am competitive with others, but I am definitely competitive with myself.
Oh, for
And
sure.
I love voiceover. I love it, you know. And so wanting to be able to do voiceover better is hugely motivating for me. And hearing something that's good, I want to save the recording and I want to play it over and over and over and over again. And that's absolutely one of those things. So part of my job, I've learned, is to somehow get you to make a mental note that actually works to let you know that when you follow a certain process, whatever that might be, you get a result that never needs to be improved on because people always want to fix things. And by doing so, you know, they try to drive a car without gas in it, because they're focusing so much on how they steer. They forgot to put gas in the tank,
Yeah.
right? The problems with overthinking. I, I mean, there's the best review I have. If you know me, I'm speechless. That just doesn't happen. you know, you're going to get a greeting card from Sarah. Thank you for making Dave speechless. You've improved all of our lives.
I'm glad you think so.
I could tell you everything I loved about it, but there was so much. I mean, the first thing when you got started, I wanted to write down my understanding of your choices and the meaning you were putting on things, right? I just thought that Robert De Niro, Laurence Olivier, Matt Damon level of acting, you know, was just amazing, right? And then
Mhm.
you kept making new choices, and the speech was incredible. How can we get you to do that and accept that it is unnecessary to alter? I don't know what words I can give you. What was that like for you? Presumably, there were things you might have been interested to achieve or change, but what was that like for you? It was incredible. I mean, I was, I on May 18th, 2026 at 1:20 p.m., I had the experience. Sound like I'm talking about the aliens coming. I was one of the first to be chosen to experience it. What was it like for you?
I think I sort of just realized when you were doing your example that I was like, you know what I think this problem is? I think I just genuinely don't know how to direct myself. So I heard you do yours and heard you go like, uh, you were like, a great mentor, a great mentor. And I just sort of heard that and was like, he's adding phonation without like changing it at all. I was like, why can't I just do that? Like, don't think about it, just change it without changing you.
I think there's a breakthrough here. I think what you heard, so when we say um, um, in the in linguistics, the smallest intonation unit, basically an intonation unit is a group of words, string of words, right? A sentence can be an intonation unit. The smallest intonation unit is what we call the speech chunk, right? And one of the reasons that linguists say that this is the smallest intonation unit is because the smallest intonation unit has only a single tonic word. In other words, only one word in the group of words, right, gets attention, it gets highlighted. So
Mm-hmm.
here, we have them bolded or highlighted, or, somehow we point out that that's the keyword, that's the tonic word. So what you heard me doing was using that structural reality, right? That there's only one word that really gets to tell the story. And the other words support that, and the other words can change, and there's a lot that can happen. But if you say, um, I think a good example, uh, I played some golf, not much. And I've seen some movies where there's golf. And sometimes you see them making fun of people who like wear things that are supposed to help your golf swing, right? They wear
Yeah.
a rope tied to your shoulder, tied to your wrist, or there's an angled thing on the golf club and you have to think about, all kind of thing. And I remember a movie where somebody said, you should never use any of those things. And then they threw them in the trash, right? And then it was a Kevin Costner movie, Rene Russo, Tin Cup. And when Kevin Costner, golf pro, started having trouble with his swing and he didn't know what to do, he dug all the toys out of the trash and he was caught wearing them all. um, and that's kind of what this is, right? The tonic word, the key word, if we think of it as, like one of those gizmos that you wear to narrow down what you are allowed to do, right? And you just kind of say, I'm only going to try to do a little something with that word, right? I'm going to let the structure narrow down the possibilities. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I have to use the structure. So if I want to do something, the only place that I can do something is on that tonic word, right? On that keyword. And when you do that, it gets so much easier because the other words can kind of alter and flow and do things to support your effort, but you also don't think about like tone or drama or anything else. You realize that this very narrow sort of structure gives you kind of a gift that you can actually express a lot of different things within this, limited structure. I feel like you really got that and you really saw that what I was doing, what you did was so much better than what I did, but you saw that I was just limiting myself to the only kind of changes I can make are within this structure. And they tend to be pretty small. Is that a fair summary?
That's probably a better way of putting what I said, yeah. You
So,
were you were changing it up in a way that made sense for the sentence versus trying to change it up in a way that made sense for the tone, I guess, versus being like, you don't. You just said it again, but added in slight variety.
yeah,
I,
you could
I
hear,
suck at phrasing this, but
no, no, that's okay. I get that you got it. Um, in teaching somebody something, it's the old Karate Kid thing, right? Where he's taught to wax on using clockwise motion, wax off using a counterclockwise motion, and then he makes him, polish his cars over and over and over again. The guy says, "I paid you to, I asked you to teach me karate, and you're just making you your car washing slave." And so then the teacher attacks him, and he says, "Wax on, wax off," right? And he learns that the motions that he's been practicing are karate defensive motions. And it's that kind of limitation in teaching, right? Where you say, you're just going to learn something very, 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 very simple. It's very limited. It doesn't give you a lot of opportunity to do interesting things, right? And that's what it feels like to a new learner. And then as you get better and better, you discover that keeping it limited actually expands your skill and your expression.
mhm.
Why demos are rejected in 4 seconds or less is primarily because people don't follow this structure. That's it. They try so hard to deliver some kind of tone that they break the structure and they do it continuously. They break the structure in pretty much every sound group. Everything that comes out of their mouth is wrong. And you kind of go, wait a minute, how's that possible? Right? But people will go, you don't have to be perfect to be a great mentor,
Yeah,
right?
that sounds like me.
Well, I'm not turning a person at you. I guess I did switch more to your tone probably because we're talking together here and I'm jealous. Um, but you can hear how I broke all of the speech chunks. And people find ways to change them and change them and change them and never recognize that there is a fundamental landscape. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so what you did was you said, I am simply going to stay in this really, really narrow landscape, right? There's flat areas and there's peaks. And the only time I'm going to do anything is on the peaks. And I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but I'm just going to do something. And then I'm going to do it a little differently. The funny thing is, because we're humans, even if you don't know what to do, if you do something and then you do something different, they're generally both very interesting. And everything you did was so, oh God, it didn't. Partly, I think this is a great script for you. And don't, please don't overanalyze that because it's just amazing how certain kinds of language just really gel for us. We could take another script that's almost identical to this one, right? And tries to
Yeah.
get across the same message. And I guarantee you that we could find something where you would go, this just does not work for me. There's something about certain scripts and certain topics. It's not just the topic. It's not just the writing. It's somehow just the right sweet spot for us.
Yeah.
That's what I've experienced. Let's just do it again. Let's take a different chunk. Here, let's take the second sentence, which is lines 3 and 4, right? All you have to do is be yourself and be present.
Okay.
All right, and we'll do the same thing, right? I will go first. I'm going to do each sound group once, and they'll say your turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll each do each sound group 3 times, and I'll say your turn. Okay, so here we go. All you have to do is be yourself and be present. Your turn.
All you have to do is be yourself and be present.
I'm going to kind of ignore your performance, which is better than mine, and it was very good, because we've hit a different issue, which was also present in the first read, and it is a good thing, and I want to point out the good thing. But in pointing out the difference, you may go, "Oh, I don't want to have a difference," but the difference is a good thing. So in the first lines, when you first read it all the way through, you highlighted mentor instead of great, right? A great mentor instead of a great mentor. And that's fine. That is, if we're just going to be statistical and linguistic, it is more common to highlight the last word, right? That's a very common thing.
Right.
When there are two major words, two important words, two lexical terms, it is often useful to highlight the first one because the first one describes the second one, right?
Right.
So in line 7, in their lives is valid as is in their lives. A great mentor is valid as is a great mentor. It's more natural in a way to only highlight the last word. If you choose to make of the word pair the first word tell us something about the second one, you've got to be careful that you don't overdo it, right?
Right.
And that's where you get words like your, and people go,
Your.
do you value your time? You know, instead of do you value your time? you
Yeah.
know, right? In their lives. And so when we say something about something, there's a temptation to overdo it, to overstate it, to realize, hey, we're making a strong point, right?
Yeah.
But it's more natural if you can make your point by being a human with a point of view that we can detect when we hear you speak than trying to bend the words around to make your point. And you do that frequently. You make your point more naturally by using the last word, right? So when you said a great mentor, I felt like that was probably the best choice. But part of teaching this is you do have to be able to make, sort of, so to speak, the stronger point in a subtle way, to be able to say a great mentor
Mm-hmm.
without going a great mentor,
A great mentor.
Yeah. And that's tricky because it does make you want to overdo it,
Yeah.
right? It has this natural, now it's a bigger deal, you know. And so you have to be kind of careful that you just sort of let the stair step happen. A great
Oh.
mentor, right? Here I'm dropping on mentor. I could do them
Yeah.
equally. A great mentor,
Mentor.
right? That's not wrong. A great mentor. Now, now that I'm doing it over and over again, I'm overthinking it and I got to get it out of my great mentor, great mentor, great mentor, great mentor, great mentor, 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 great, 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 great mentor, great mentor. I got to get it out of my system because I'm overthinking it. A great mentor. Now, I prefer your choice. And in this second half, be yourself and be present,
Mm.
you highlighted yourself and present instead of be. And I think it is the better choice. And it is definitely the optional choice. And part of the trick of marking this up is knowing that there isn't just one choice,
Be
and helping people
yourself.
to find it. So part of highlighting the word before the end is just to make sure that you get a drop, right? It's not that we're
Right.
highlighting be, in other words, mentally, as much as it is finishing the sound group with a drop, right? Is be
Reminding you to do
yourself,
that.
is be yourself and be present, right? So I'm not going,
Yeah.
is be yourself and be present.
Be yourself and be present.
So I feel like the way this is marked is really a waste for you. You are a better talent than the way this is marked. You can take a more neutral approach and by that neutrality convince us of the truth of it, right? When you have to bend words around, we no longer believe it. So in a sense, neutral speech is where we detect what you really think. And changing the words around to make a point stronger feels like you're just trying to manipulate. And also when we feel like somebody's trying to manipulate, we also lose the sense of what do you really think? It never happens. We never get the idea of what you think. We can logically assume that because you're manipulating us to the left, that you believe that left is the best direction. You know what I mean? Or to the right or whatever. But if you don't manipulate, then we get a sense of what you really believe.
Mm.
And so your choice to take the more neutral word, the final word in the speech chunk, and make that the tonic word of the information unit, is correct. It is a more advanced choice. It can be a little harder to do well, but it is the more professional choice. And I think you do it beautifully.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes I have to say, you need to be able to make the choice as written because the tagline for a company, they will want a very specific pitch contour and you'll have to follow it, right? So you have to be
Yeah.
able to follow a pitch contour that does not feel natural to you and make it sound natural. But you have that ability and we don't need to make that part of what we're doing. And the fact that you naturally honor the cadence of speech, right? By feeling that this is an information unit and here's the next wave and here's the next wave. You very naturally convey that here's the wave, here's the next wave, here's the next wave. And then you choose within those waves the right choice. So you've got the ability to feel the waves, to see how information is structured into these small groups and then make the right choice. So, you know, grasshopper, you no longer need the script. You now fly without wings.
See how far that gets me.
Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
it's not a failure, right? It's actually an improvement. And I do not want you to use the markup to guide your choices. Because you have a very strong sense of these information units, right? These individual waves of speech. You're very, very confident and strong with them. I want you to make your own choices, which you
Okay.
do. I want that. I'm not just kind of saying, well, I guess that's what he did, so let's make it sound like a good thing.
Yeah.
You know, right? I'm trying to, tell your skeptical left brain. It's really true, and this is, that's an issue with this. Um, however it's marked is wrong, right? Because the alternative always exists.
Hmm. I get you.
Um, I think that is the whole magic here, is that for you to recognize that the tonic word is the only thing that can be changed, and that how it changes is more of a gentle improv with no advanced planning, right? To not say it must be strong or weak or happy or sad or authoritative or dramatic or friendly or right.
Hmm.
Yeah, you heard me doing that. I was saying the structure only allows me to play with the tonic word. And then you did the same thing and you just used your human instincts for what kind of things can happen with this word. And they were fantastic. So it's the perfect straitjacket for you. Can you give me another recording of Be a Mentor and do the 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, right? Just do each speech chunk 3 times.
Okay.
And if you find you're, messed up by how a speech chunk is broken, like I think this should really be, these words should be the chunk rather than, or something like that. Do what you think or skip it, but don't get caught up in it, right?
Okay.
And if you want to, and be present, right? Instead of, and be present, follow your instincts. But if it gets confusing or you feel like it's wrong or different choices should be made, kind of give up and then let's talk about whatever seems weird rather than try to fix it, try to find a way.
Yeah.
Just make them a note that for whatever reason, this part is weird. And you said, don't mess with something that just feels weird. And, cool.
Yeah. There really is a lot of weird ones like that. Like that until you point them out is like it's fun. It's on one hand, it's like wow, I can't believe I didn't notice that, but at the same time, it's really fun to like hear it different, like what you just did with and be present and be present. Like that's it's fun to hear that because now I'm aware of
I've read very little Shakespeare, but some. And I've, seen more of it performed than I've read, and still very little. And he writes in such a way that there are a lot of choices that are possible. He does not write in a way where the choices are more limited. Um, to be or not to be,
it. Hmm.
right? Um,
We.
to be, comma, or connecting, not negating to be. So we start with to be and we end with to be, right? And so the last to be is simply a negation, right? We're not saying to be or to die, right? Die would be a different word. So he gets to say not to be. So he gets to throw in that not. Right? You get to say to be twice, but the second time it has a different meaning because of the not. Well, not, right? So I could say to be or not to be. I could say to be or not to be, right?
Hmm.
But with the comma and the or, I can also go to be or not to be, right? And to and be, to be or not to be, right? I can make it parallel. I can go to be or not to be, right? None of those are wrong choices. And when I've looked at his writing and I've broken it down according to the system, I see that the choices are built into the system, right? The system would say that in this writing, you have many choices. And that's just kind of how he writes.
Hmm.
Just so you know that often good writing does not shoehorn you. So your instinct that it could be this way, could be that way. Like Discover Business, there's no going back, is written as there's no going back. But obviously, there's no going back also works, or there's no going back, or there's no going back, right? Or there's no going back, or there's no going back, right? All of
There's
those
no
things work. You
going
can take the
back.
whole thing as a stair step. You can separate theirs and stair step, no going back. You can highlight just no, highlight just going, no going back, no going back, no going back, right? No going
Hmm.
back. There's no going back, right? It's one of those things. You don't need to think about it. You do need to try the choice as written without much effort and then just kind of go, if I'm highlighting a different word, so be it. That's the one I've picked. But you have to stick with your choice unless you feel like, okay, now I'm overthinking it and I want to try no going back, no going back, no going back, then you're kind of screwed and you should probably stop.
Yeah, that kind of sounds almost exactly like the
But here's the
problem
thing, you're thinking too
I've
much.
had with that sort of
Yeah, but you're hearing how the different choices or the existing choice lead it in a certain way, right? No going
hmm.
back. Instead of hearing how the choice feels weird or is taking you in a direction you wouldn't want to go, stick with the choice and try little subtleties. So let's say I choose no, right, as my tonic word. No going back. And I'm going to go, no going back. No going back. No going back. Right? And then that's it. I'm done. I
Yeah.
put a straight jacket on, which said no is the tonic word. I'm just going to play a little bit with that. Some other stuff might change. And in one case, I kind of highlighted back as well. And the other two, I didn't. That's fine. And then you move on.
Discover business. There's no going back.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. And in a more advanced writing, I would make the option to linger on theirs and to linger on theirs and no together, or to linger on both theirs and no. There's no going back, right? Which is what you did.
There's no going
But
back.
here's the thing, when you make a choice, you have to specify for yourself what was the choice. Because what you can't do is try to take the tone or the sound and repeat it. What you must do is take the structure and repeat it. And that's where you get trapped if you go, there's no going back, right? And you think, okay, less sort of a dramatic announcer. There's no going back. And then you're trying to create this tone and play with the sound. Instead, choose a structure, stick with the structure, make only subtle changes that follow the structure. Don't change how it sounds. Just tweak your structure, keep your structural choice, tweak within it. That's all. So for you, there's no going back would sort of be the structure you chose. So I'd go, there's no going back. There's no going back. There's no going back, right? I'm just playing within the structure.
Yeah.
Now, I recognize I'm doing too much. And I would probably, there's, there's no, there's no going back. There's no going back. And partly my voice is a little broken. And so falling into two different registers and it's throwing me off. Anyway, send me be a mentor again. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Got to
Will
let you
do.
run. I got a 2 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you so much for setting this up. Take care, Michael.
Yeah. I'll try to
All
be
right.
a little more consistent.
Don't worry about that. Just follow this approach. You're great.
Okay.
All right. Bye for now.
Yep. Bye for now.